Be prepared. Be prepared. This is the Boy Scout motto. But I never seem to be well prepared for anything, be it an exam or a journey. So, how long did I survive as a Boy Scout? It seems a rumor had gone around the junior school that I was a good cook. I had never cooked anything in my life, but I had spent a lot of time in the tuck shop making suggestions to and encouraging Chimpu, the tuck shop owner, to make more and better samosas, jalebis, and pakoras. With this qualification, I won a cookery badge and I was put in charge of our Boy Scouts troop's supply of rations. There were about 20 of us in our troop. During the summer break, our scoutmaster, Mr. Oliver, took us on a camping expedition to a mountain a few miles outside Shimla. The first night, we were put to work peeling potatoes, skinning onions, shelling peas, and pounding masalas. When the ingredients were ready, I was asked what should be done with them. Put everything in that big dekshi, I ordered. Pour half a tin of ghee over the lot, add some nettle leaves, and cook for half an hour. When this was done, everyone had a taste and agreed that the dish lacked something. More salt, I suggested, but the dish still lacked something. Add a cup of sugar, I ordered, and a bottle of tomato sauce. The dish was a great success. Even Mr. Oliver, who had no idea what had gone into it, enjoyed it. What's this called? He asked. The bon bhujia, said one of the boys. I had earned my cookery badge. The next day, Mr. Oliver told us he would teach us tracking. Taking a half-hour head start, he walked into the forest, leaving a trail of broken twigs, pine cones, and chestnuts behind him. We were to follow the trail until we found him. Unfortunately, we were not very good trackers. We did follow Mr. Oliver's trail some way into the forest, but then we got distracted by a pool of clear water. We jumped in and romped about, enjoying the sunshine. Hours later, feeling hungry, we returned to our campsite and prepared the evening meal. It was bon bhujia again, but with a few variations. It was growing dark and we were beginning to worry about Mr. Oliver's whereabouts when he limped into the camp. He had waited for us at the far end of the forest for a couple of hours. Then he decided to return but got lost in the gathering gloom. Village folk finally helped him back to the camp. He was very angry and made us return all our badges. An hour later, when we were all preparing to get into our sleeping bags for the night, Mr. Oliver called out, "Where's dinner?" "We've had ours," said one of the boys. "Everything is finished, sir." "Where's Bond?" "He's the cook. Bond, get up and give me an omelette." "I can't, sir." "Why not?" "You have my badge. Not allowed to cook without it. Scout rule, sir." "I've never heard of such a rule, but you can take your badges, all of you. We return to school tomorrow." Mr. Oliver returned to his tent in a huff, but I relented and made him a grand omelette, garnishing it with dandelion leaves and a chili. "Never had such an omelette before," Mr. Oliver said. "Would you like another, sir?" "Tomorrow, Bond, tomorrow. We'll breakfast early tomorrow." But we had to break up our camp in the early hours of the next morning. A bear had wandered into our camp, entered the tent where our stores were kept, and created havoc with all our provisions, even rolling our biggest digshi down the hillside. In the confusion and uproar that followed, the bear entered Mr. Oliver's tent. Our scoutmaster was already outside, luckily, and came out entangled in his dressing gown. It then made off toward the forest, a comical sight in its borrowed clothes. And though we were a troop of brave little scouts, we thought it better to let the bear keep its gown. Ruskin Bond. Let's try and answer a few questions. What was the Boy Scout motto? The Boy Scout motto was "Be prepared." What was the rumor that went around the junior school? The rumor that went around the junior school was that Bond was a good cook. How did Bond earn his cookery badge? Bond earned his cookery badge by spending time at the tuck shop and making suggestions to Chimpu, the tuck shop owner, to make better samosas, jalebis, and pakoras. How many children were there in the troop? There were 20 children in the troop. Where did Mr. Oliver take the children for a camping expedition? Mr. Oliver took the children to a mountain. Where was the camping expedition? The camping expedition was at a mountain a few miles outside Shimla. What were the boys made to do on the first night of camping? The first night of camping, they were made to peel potatoes, skin onions, shell peas, and pound masalas. In what vessel did they cook? They cooked in a big dekshi. What were the ingredients added to make the Bond bhujia? To make the Bond bhujia, they took the peeled potatoes, the skinned onions, peas, and masalas, added ghee and nettle leaves to it, and boiled it in the pot. When they realized that the dish lacked something, they added more salt, and then more sugar, and then a bottle of tomato sauce. Why did Bond say that he had earned his cookery badge? Bond said he had earned his cookery badge because the boys called his dish the Bond bhujia, and everybody loved the dish. How did Mr. Oliver teach the boys tracking? Mr. Oliver taught the boys tracking by leaving a trail of broken twigs, pine cones, and chestnuts in the path that he followed. He expected the boys to follow his trail and find him. How did the boys lose Mr. Oliver's trail? The boys lost Mr. Oliver's trail because they got distracted by a pool of clear water which excited them so much that they jumped in it. Why was Mr. Oliver angry? Mr. Oliver was angry because he lost his way in the forest, finding his way back to the camp. He had waited for the boys for 2 hours at the far end of the camp, but they did not show up. Why did Bond refuse to make an omelette for Mr. Oliver? Bond refused to make an omelette for Mr. Oliver because he said that Mr. Oliver had seized all their badges, including his cookery badge, and it wasn't allowed for him to cook anything without his badge. How did Bond prepare an omelette for Mr. Oliver? Bond made an omelette for Mr. Oliver by garnishing it with dandelion leaves and a chili. Why did the boys have to break up their camp earlier than planned? A bear had wandered into their camp and created havoc with all their provisions. It even rolled their biggest dekshi down the hillside. What did the bear take away with him from Mr. Oliver's tent? The bear took away Mr. Oliver's dressing gown by becoming entangled in it. It was a comical sight to see the bear in borrowed clothes. Who is the author of this passage? Ruskin Bond is the author of this passage.